Hey guys, Sam the Man, the Batman Man here, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing part 4, a continuation of how much I know about Pixar. In this part, I'm going to be talking about Easter eggs that are references to some of their past movies, as well as some things you might have not known about the studio, and some other things too are, I may go back to the foreshadowing Easter eggs for their future movies. So anyways, I'm going to do the references to past movies first, so here we go. In Finding Nemo, in the scene where it shows when Nemo is first in the fish tank, you'll see when he's all frightened when he looks around the whole room at the dentist office. You can see when he's looking around the waiting room, and there's a toy chest. You'll see this character right here. If you look right there, you can see Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story franchise. That is really cool. You can see the Space Ranger we know and love right there in Finding Nemo in the dentist's office waiting room. That is really cool. That's just a really cool Easter egg they threw in. That's just really cool. This next Easter egg is from Toy Story 2. In the scene when Woody is trying to find his hat, Mrs. Potato Head is reading a book. And if you look closely, look at the picture in the book. It's Dot and some two other kid ants from A Bug's Life, so that is pretty cool. She's reading a book based on A Bug's Life. That's actually pretty cool. This is not the only Bug's Life Easter egg that was in Toy Story 2, though. There's actually some more. I'm going to show them off to you right now. In the scene right after Woody gets cleaned up by Jerry, you'll see Buzz running around Al's toy barn, and he passes by some toys that looks like something from one of Pixar's previous movies. I know. Look, it's toys from Bug's Life. You can see a Flick one and one for Din. So that is actually really, really cool. I never knew that when I first watched Toy Story 2, and then when I rewatched it, I'm like, oh, why are there Bugs Life toys? I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But they threw in little Bugs Life toys there. That's actually pretty interesting. Yeah, that's just really cool. Anyways, I think these are the only Bugs Life Easter eggs in Toy Story 2, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to another movie that has hidden Easter eggs to past movies, so here we go. In the scene at the end of Monsters, Inc., the ending when Sully says goodbye to Boo, and yes, the same scene that has a foreshadow to Finding Nemo, which I talked about in part 1. I'll put a link to part 1, part 2, and part 3 in the description. In the same scene, when Sally says goodbye to Boo, yeah, the exact same scene that also has a foreshadow to Finding Nemo, which was the next movie after Monsters, Inc., you can actually see two references to some past Pixar projects. You can see Jessie from Toy Story 2 sitting on that table right there, laying on that table right there. And then you got the famous Luxo ball right there, laying on the floor. So that is pretty cool. Yeah, it's like, there's one foreshadow to Finding Nemo, the next movie, and then two references to some of Pixar's past projects. Yeah, that is really cool. I love how Pixar throws in Easter eggs to foreshadow the next movie, and just putting in references to some of their past movies too. That's just really cool. Anyways, let's move on to some other hidden Easter eggs that reference past movies. So here we go. In Finding Nemo, in the dentist's office, you can see the little fish decorations hanging up. See those little fish decorations hanging up? Those are actually a reference to some of those decorations Boo had in her room from Monsters, Inc. The things that Sully got caught on and ended up having to flush, but it didn't work, so he had to put it in one of the lockers in the locker room. Yeah, those little fish decorations are actually from Monsters, Inc., so that is really cool. Well, I didn't even notice that until a little bit after multiple times I've seen Finding Nemo, and then I look closely, I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the decorations from Boo's room. That's pretty cool. Then there are some other reference. There's another Monsters Inc. reference to Finding Nemo. Oh, another Monsters Inc. reference in Finding Nemo, which I'm going to show you now. In the end credits, near the end, you can see Mike Wazowski swimming by. Like, you can actually see Mike Wazowski swimming by. That's just, I'm like, everyone was probably like, if anyone that stayed for the credits is probably like, what's Mike Wazowski doing here? He's not in this movie. A lot of people were probably like that when they saw the whole credits for the first time. That was just, it's cool. Like, I'm like, Mike Wazowski's in this movie near the end. He makes a little cameo. That's pretty cool. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I love all the hidden Easter eggs Pixar throws into their movies, whether it's a nod to their future movie or it's references to their past movies. Pixar is great with that. But yeah, there's actually one more hidden Monsters Inc. Easter egg in Finding Nemo. I'm going to show it off now. In the same scene when Nemo's first in the fish tank, in the same scene where we see the Buzz Lightyear by the toy chest, if you look closely enough, I didn't even notice this one until now, you can actually look, you can see a little book right there that says a little purple M. This is actually supposed to be a Monsters Inc. book called M is for Monster. That is actually really cool. I didn't even know that until now. It's like, you can like go back to any random scene in any of these movies just to look for the hidden Easter eggs. I love when Pixar does that. Pixar is just a great studio, animation studio. Pixar is definitely the best animation studio, for sure, in my opinion. Their movies are great. None of their movies are bad. They just make really amazing movies. And it's just like, it's fun to go back to any random scene just to find a hidden Easter egg that you didn't notice. Yeah, that's what I like a lot about these movies too, is like, you can just go back into these and just look for any hidden Easter egg. Yeah, that's just really cool. Anyways, those were all the Monsters Inc. Easter eggs in Finding Nemo. Now I'm gonna show off maybe one more Easter egg in this part, and then talk about a little thing that you probably didn't know. Some things you didn't know about Pixar. So here's the last Easter egg that's a reference to a past movie. In Ratatouille, in the scene when Linguini and Colette are roller skating, you can see Bon Voyage from The Incredibles in the background. That's just pretty cool. Yeah, and fun fact, Ratatouille and The Incredibles were both directed by Brad Bird, so that is pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool that Bon Voyage from The Incredibles made a little cameo in Ratatouille, so that's cool. Anyways, I'm going to take a little break from the Easter eggs and talk about some other things you might have not known about Pixar. And before Disney bought Pixar in 2006, Disney Circle 7 Animation actually had some little ideas for sequels to Pixar movies. There was supposed to be concepts for Finding Nemo 2, Monsters Inc. 2, and Toy Story 3. And they were actually completely different concepts then for like the either sequels or prequels we actually got. Like Monsters Inc. 2 was actually supposed to be like an actual like sequel to Monsters Inc. And Finding Nemo 2 was actually going to be about where Marlin gets captured and then Nemo would have to do with the epic journey to go find him. And Dory would help, obviously. And then with Toy Story 3, it was actually going to be a completely different story where all Buzz Lightyears get recalled, so Buzz gets sent to Japan or whatever, and so the toys have to go save him. So, yeah, they were actually supposed to be like different plots, so that's pretty interesting. But then when Disney bought Pixar in 2006, they had to cancel them. So, yeah, it would have been cool to see those movies, though. They sounded interesting. That's pretty cool. For Monsters Inc. 2, the original, there was actually a little name for this. Monsters Inc. 2, Lost in Scaradise. This movie was supposed to be about where Sully still misses Boo a lot. Mike sets up a little visit for them to go see Boo. And then they go to Boo's door and realize that it's an old woman that Boo is actually in the they have to go in the human world to go find Boo, and then they realize that Boo is in the hospital, and that she's about to pass, unfortunately. So they get to see her before she passes, and this is actually sounds like a pretty interesting movie, and sad too, because Boo passes away. This actually would have been a pretty cool sequel. I mean, Monsters at Work, the show on Disney Plus. I guess that's kind of like a sequel to Monsters Inc. That was a good show. Then the prequel, Monsters University, that was a good prequel. It shows a little of how they got the jobs at Monsters Inc. That was pretty cool, but still, this sequel would have been interesting to see. Yeah. Anyways, there's actually one thing about the Finding Nemo sequel that I forgot to mention. I'll talk about that now. Another thing about Finding Nemo 2 is that apparently this one actually has where Nemo has a lost brother named Remy, which I just think of Ratatouille. Where Nemo has a lost brother named Remy, and then, like I said, Marlin gets captured, so Nemo, Dory, and Remy have to go save him. And that thumbnail, and that picture I used, where it has a diver and Marlin, that was actually a thumbnail from a theory someone made, called a Finding Nemo theory called "What if Marlin went missing instead of Nemo?" Where Marlin and Nemo would switch roles. I'll put a link to that theory in the description. It's actually a little interesting. I'll put a link to that in the description. I thought that picture would be perfect to use because the original plan for this sequel was going to be where Marlin gets captured. Yeah. Anyways, those were all the planned sequels that they were planning to do at the time before it got shut down. Disney Circle 7 Animation got shut down since Disney bought Pixar in 2006. But still, that is pretty cool. I'm going to talk about maybe like two more things for this, and then I'll wrap it up for this part and talk about some more in the next part. Here's something I learned about my all-time favorite Pixar film, The Incredibles. The director of the film, Brad Bird, he was all done working with The Iron Giant, which was distributed by Warner Brothers. He was working at Warner Brothers, and then he decided to work on his next idea, The Incredibles, Family of Superheroes. It was actually originally going to be a traditionally animated film by Warner Brothers, but however, the animation division of Warner Brothers actually shut down, so he brought the story with him to Pixar and reunited with John Lasseter, because I think Brad Bird and John Lasseter were friends actually from like college, I think it was. I'm not too sure, but they were friends, so they reunited once Brad Bird brought the story of The Incredibles to Pixar, that after the animation division of Warner Brothers shut down at the time. So that's actually pretty cool. That's really cool. I learned about that a little while ago, and that's actually pretty interesting. Anyways, I'm going to talk about some things about Toy Story. This Casper doll right here was actually John Lasseter's favorite toy when he was a kid, so he used it as a little pull string to use it to talk, and this is how he got the inspiration to use the pull string thing on Woody when he was working on Toy Story. So that's actually pretty cool. And he says this in the Making of Toy Story documentary, which we will find on the home video release of the movie, like DVD and Blu-ray. That's actually really cool. It's like, ooh, I never knew that. So that's where he got the inspiration for Woody. This is really cool. I like that. Anyways, I think that's the last thing I'll talk about for this part. So I'll just do my outro now. Anyways, I hope you learned some things today. You probably didn't know a lot about this, but with the Disney Circle 7 animation, with the original scripts for these sequels, Toy Story 3, I'm happy with how it ended up turning out with the Toy Story 3 we actually got. It was still a fantastic movie. And then Finding Nemo 2, the actual Finding Nemo sequel we got, Finding Dory, was great. The Monsters at Work, which is kind of like a sequel to Monsters, Inc., was a good show. I enjoyed it. Anyways, yeah, and then with the thing with The Incredibles, many of you probably didn't know that, but it's actually pretty cool. And with how that Casper doll, the pull string, inspired John Lasseter for Woody, that's really cool. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for part 5, and stay tuned for my next video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Sam the Man, the Batman Man is out. Bye!